The LEGO Group has produced some fantastic sets this past year. Gringotts, Tales of the Space Age, the Hogwarts diorama, and the Indiana Jones Temple of the Golden Idol. But there was one set that shadows over them all. One set to rule them all. And that is the LEGO Lord of the Rings Rivendell. Coming in at 6,167 pieces. Okay, so maybe not the same Rivendell that was on the box, but a Rivendell nonetheless. There we go. Much better. I could go the route of other YouTubers and explore every nook and cranny of this massive set and review it as if I were a robot performing yet another assessment about the newest plastic product. But if you wanted that, there's already a plethora of videos doing exactly that. What I'd like to do is go over my personal thoughts about the set as a whole, what it felt like building it, and show off some beauty shots of this stunning and expensive build. Right off the bat, I need to say this. I did not purchase this set myself. My brother and sister-in-law bought me this as a wedding present, and we are all teachers here in Orlando, so I know that buying this was not easy. I'm forever grateful that they bought me this during a really tough year for everyone, economically speaking. Every time I look at this set on the shelf, I'm grateful that they would be so kind as to do this for me. So a humongous and forever thank you to them. Rivendell is a set that I was anticipating for about a year after having seen the links on Instagram early last year, but my expectations and suppositions were hampered by my own lack of imagination. I expected the set to be large and look good, especially after seeing the rumored $500 price tag. What I was not expecting was an alluring and elaborate build that is as beautiful as it is fun to put together. 10 years ago, I collected the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit sets and still have them put away in Ziplocs within my storage unit. My LEGO dark period, so to speak, started when the second wave of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit sets released, so unfortunately I missed out on the Black Gate, Council of Elrond, and Pirate Ship Ambush, as well as one of my White Whale sets, the Lonely Mountain. Note to past self, just because you think you won't be cool for liking plastic bricks does not mean you can't enjoy them. If it fills your life with joy, stick with it. Hearing that potentially more Middle-earth sets were being produced pushed my childlike brain to the brink of exploding. After seeing Rivendell online and then at the LEGO store in Disney Springs, I knew there was no escaping my very unfortunate fate. That this set needed to be in my hands as soon as possible. It looked stunning, the colors were vibrant, and they popped. The trees and nature elements looked natural and filled the set with a proper woodsy feel without being completely covered by trees. The building structures looked impressively large and complex, filled with interesting snot techniques that help contribute to an accurate-looking Rivendell. So accurate, in fact, that the designers used soundstage blueprints to nail some of the scenes presented here. Something I want to mention before going over the rest of the set is that it's not replicating one particular scene or one structure of Rivendell. It's more about an amalgamation of a bunch of different scenes within Rivendell that the designers have kind of stuffed together into one cohesive and absolute set to represent Rivendell. The instruction booklet has a brief history of the Lord of the Rings line, as well as notes from the designers about the set. And one thing I really appreciate about this particular set of instructions, and I really do hope that LEGO continues to do this, is that the designers have placed footnotes about the build techniques, different pieces, and fun facts in general throughout the manual. Now, I know it's not the first time that this has happened, but for me, I think as someone who usually takes building LEGO very, very slowly, I appreciate that the instructions included some light reading with tidbits about the build, My favorite footnote being about the chairs in the Council of Elrond area, stating that the chairs were made from hot dogs and popsicle pieces, finishing off the note with the quote, "We may have been hungry that day." That sort of personalization is so appreciated, and it brings a further lightheartedness to an already really whimsical build. Okay, let's talk about the build process for this behemoth. It took me about 3 weeks to build. And that's obviously not consistently pumping out bags every single night, every moment. I still have a full-time job. I still have things to do after I get home from work. And with a busy schedule and my fiance and I building our Christmas village in between days, I chose to take the build process as slow as possible on purpose, slower than I normally would. And I really wanted to be able to work on this for as long as I could to stretch out the entire operation. I had the Lord of the Rings movies on in the background, extended editions, of course. I mean, is there really even another kind of Lord of the Rings movie? Come on. I even ventured back into the Rings of Power show on Amazon, as well as The Hobbit. Now, I know the reviews were mixed on both, but I love them nonetheless. If I have an excuse to get back into Middle-earth, I'm there. I'm not going to be complaining. Now, I never built more than a few bags per session. So one night I did 2, one night I did 3, and it usually didn't end up being more than that on any particular night. I was really enjoying the process of slowly putting this together. This is one of the few sets where I got increasingly sad when the end of the build came to a close because I was enjoying the process so much. Now, the last set that made me feel that way was probably the Pirates of Barracuda base set back in, I think it was 2020. This sorrow that swept over me, so to speak, of realizing that building Rivendell for the first time was coming to a close, it made me remind myself that this is Lego, not some model kit that's super glued together with the Craggle. I can disassemble and rebuild anytime I like, though I think my fiance is more than happy that the kitchen table is now a usable surface again. I couldn't care less. We have a couch that's also for eating. Pieces. There are over 6,000 pieces in this set. With 49 numbered bags, Rivendell is a hefty, chunky boy. Some steps combine bags, but most are just a bag at a time per the instruction booklet. We get 6 new piece molds for this set, 5 of them being new weapons for the figures, and a new fern piece, which has very quickly become one of my favorite elements. Lucky for anybody who purchases this set, we get 34 of these new fern pieces. Now, some people choose to army build with clone troopers or orcs or even droids, but not I. I choose to army build with the ferns. I will create a fern army, and we will conquer all land that is not lush and flowing with green foliage. On top of the new molds, we get 5 new printed elements, 3 of them being tiles for the floor, and 2 of which being skirt attachments, skirt print pieces for Gandalf and Elrond. But more on that later. The new floor print makes up 77 of the 79 printed pieces found in the set, but you do not want to army build with the printed floor elements. The ferns are far stronger. There are 2 sticker sheets containing a total of 13 stickers. In a $500 set, I think that stickers should be a thing of the past. And I know I'm not the only one to say this, and I know that it's easier said than done. But stickers frankly cheapen the build ever so slightly, and when you're spending $500, $500,000, printed pieces should be the norm going forward. Even a company like Kobe, who make military sets, a company from Poland, I have 3 of them and they're fantastic. They've stepped away from stickers and only use printed elements. Small complaint, but I felt that it should have been prints, and I feel like it should be said nonetheless. Now, the stickers themselves have fantastic Lego-fied Middle-earth history, including the creation of Rings of Power and the fall of Sauron against the hand of Isildur. Rivendell breaks apart nicely into 3 distinct builds for ease of access, use, and makes it easier to move. They are not able to be rearranged like the modular street builds, but that's by design. They use tan Technic pieces that do not hold together firmly, so there's really not a whole lot of wiggle required when you're shoving the builds together up on the shelf. As a display piece, it looks stellar from the front, meh from the back, in order to continually purchase new Lego sets. You need three things, and only these three things: money, space, and a back massage given to whoever you live with to distract them from the fact that you can't afford rent because the plastic toy was a little too alluring to resist. I found luckily, I found room for Rivendell on my bookshelf, but I was required to remove the golden tops of the tower spires, as well as remove one brown tree element so that it could fit vertically. It was just a little bit too tall. Luckily, there was a very simple solution, and that was just taking off a couple pieces. This is a set that might be difficult to find a home for because of the sheer size that it takes up. It's roughly as tall as any modular building, but the length is what's going to kill you. It takes up about the size of 3 base plates, and that might be a lot for some people. I know it was a lot for me. I had to take some books that I really didn't want to take off the shelf and put them under the bed, but the set is so gorgeous and beautiful that, to me, it's worth having up, and it's worth taking something else down. So just something to keep in mind when you buy this is make sure you have a place picked out where you can display it. While building Rivendell, my kitchen was filled with the music of Howard Shore, from the grasslands of Hobbiton to the slopes of Mount Doom. I was immersed back into Middle-earth in a way that felt the most authentic out of any rewatch I've ever had. By building Rivendell and going through Peter Jackson's masterpiece films, I couldn't help but feel submerged and surrounded by the world building, pun intended, that comes with a rewatch or a build of a set like this. And I can't help but think about the potential for this Lord of the Rings revival. Now, with the leaked Barad-dûr set coming sometime in 2024, it begs the question, what's next? What locations deserve a $400 price tag for such a large scope and realm that the movies encompass? Like, what locations within the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit, if we're feeling frisky, the Hobbit, but more importantly, Lord of the Rings, what locations justify a really high price tag for a really gorgeous build like this? Personally, I would love to see a massive Hobbiton set filled with Bilbo's birthday party, and you could have the Green Dragon and Bag End. It could have like an old Bilbo minifigure as well as like a Martin Freeman one. I would also love to see a massive Edoras with like a Rohan culture explosion going on. Moria also begs to be a massive set as well, and that really needs height and width to capture the beautiful columns as the Fellowship flee the Moria orcs and trolls. The moment in Fellowship of the Ring where Gandalf has a staff and he's lighting up all those columns, like that moment where the music picks up and the shot is just gorgeous, like that needs to be replicated in plastic form so that I can throw all the cash I have at it or beg someone else to get it for me. But I think that that moment, coupled with a giant Balrog and a bridge of Khazad-dûm off to the side with like a bridge play feature maybe that like dumps a brick-built Balrog into like a small rocky hole. You could even have like a circular transition moment in the back of the set where you have like the Gandalf the Grey and you like slide something and all of a sudden, bam, it's Gandalf the White. Like that would just kind of be a funny play feature. Just throwing ideas out there. The Middle-earth movies are filled to the brim with incredible set pieces begging to be put into plastic form. With Lord of the Rings fanfare not slowing down anytime soon, a timeless tale such as Lord of the Rings can work as a money printer for Lego. If the Phantom Menace can be warranting Lego sets in 2024, so can Lord of the Rings. That's all I'm saying. Lord of the Rings also manages to have small emotional moments and small scenes throughout the movies, small sets work for this theme really well. I think they can. For example, a new Gandalf cart with fireworks, a small detailed build of Gollum / Smeagol, done in like a similar vein to the buildable Dobby, or, and this is what I'd pay big bucks for, is a battle pack of ferns, okay? Battle pack of ferns, don't knock it. Now, all of these ideas for sets stem from my love of the movies, the books, the old sets, and this set. The Lego Rivendell set feels like a love letter to the Fellowship of the Ring, and that's that I was reminded constantly over and over again as I built Rivendell that not only is the Fellowship of the Ring one of my favorite movies, but it's just an amazing film to have a Lego set based on. And this entire set feels like a love letter to that franchise. Speaking of the Fellowship, let's talk about the figures. 16 of them, or maybe 21. I consider the included statues to be minifigures because they are. Just because they're unnamed doesn't mean that they aren't figures. We have, 2 generic elves included here, and they're just as much a figure as the statues in the base of the tower. I digress. But the figure selection here is incredible. We get new prints, faces, and hair pieces for all of the figures. This is a true ground-up revival of the Lord of the Rings theme. Now, my personal favorite is Gimli, but that also stems from my love of the character. I also really appreciate the inclusion of Aragorn in his Rivendell leisure clothes, a fit we did not get in the original Rings wave. Now, with the figures, we get extra pieces to allow all the figures to be in the sitting position. The hobbits use a single snot piece with a light tan colored 1x1 piece to create the illusion that the hobbit feet are there, something we also did not get in the original wave. We get 2 printed slope pieces for Gandalf and Elrond to sit down, and all of these features add up to one stellar and incredible collection of figures. This set screams to be played with and posed over and over again. Each time I pass this set on my shelf, I admire something new about the set. And often that means the figures. I believe that the set's value comes from the build itself, and I don't want to tie the value directly to just the figures. But having said that, the figures add such a wonderful touch to this great build. The prints are excellent, the selection of figures is impressive, and this is the ultimate elvish set for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This set makes me so happy. Not just because of who gave it to me, but it's gorgeous. And seeing it up on the shelf just brings me a joy that most sets that I buy don't fill me with. There's tons of sets that I like, or even really like. But this is one of those few sets that hits every right spot in my brain. It's just like, yes, this is perfect. This is beautiful. This looks wonderful on the shelf. And it makes me want to rewatch Lord of the Rings every time I look at it, which is a good problem to have. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.